Most reviews and analysis talking about Subnautica start by describing thalassophobia, a fear of deep bodies of water. I will start with a realization I got while playing the game. I like playing various types of games and genres, from shooters to RPGs and RTSs. I enjoy platformers, action games or turn-based grand strategy games. What I realized though is the fact that I don't like sandboxy survival games. It puts me in an interesting position where I can recognize that the game is extremely good, even though I didn't have as much fun with it as with other titles. So keep in mind what I said and let's roll with my late review of Subnautica. This review is based on 38 hours played, completing all 17 achievements in game, which is a 100% completion, finding all life pods and legacy bases, reading notes about every scanned object as well as listening to all PDAs, and I have completed the game on survival mode. The plot of Subnautica takes place in the future. Humankind mastered the interstellar travel and explores the space. Our spaceship, Aurora, crash lands on the planet 4546b. The objective of a player is to find other survivors, gather materials to be able to survive, which will include building a base, and finally find a way to leave the planet. The moment players leave the lifeboat for the first time, they will realize that they landed in the middle of a sea or an ocean. There are no landmarks, only water and Aurora wreckage. The feeling of being stranded and lost kicks in right away, and is there by design. Players are going to slowly try to explore the closest surroundings, gather materials for crafting purposes, which will help them progress through the game. So, how the devs made sure that player doesn't stay lost for too long? They give you 4 major ways to stay committed to the game and its story. First thing, PDA. We receive a PDA at the start. It will tell us some basic information and guide us throughout the adventure. It also collects all available data that player gathered. You can access it at any time in order to try to figure out what should be your next step. The second story clues are available through the radio. Once player will fix the radio, it will start to broadcast some messages from time to time. Usually those will be SOS broadcasts from other lifeboats that will help you in your search. But with time, maybe someone else will try to communicate with you. Third story mechanic is actually more of a gameplay mechanic. It's a scanner. You can scan many objects in the game world. You will get some information and lore out of it. You can also unlock some new ingredients or even blueprints this way. All lore unlocked through scans can be accessed in your PDA. The last mechanic that drives the plot forward is tied to PDAs of other people that are scattered throughout the game's world. Those devices contain either voice logs or some type of messages or diary entries. They are extremely important since the information given to player will usually guide them to a place of the next story clue. Everything that is important to the story is contained in player's PDA. The game does not offer any kind of objective screen, so everyone needs to figure out what they should do to progress through the plot.
I pay Maida a fraction of what I pay you, and you a fraction of what I pay me.
If money makes the hierarchy, why is Marguerite making the decisions?
We need her.
Subnautica gives its players a lot of agency over how they want to play, whether they want to mostly explore or if they want to pursue some narrative goals. Developers also believe in players' ability to find what they should do without being relentlessly aimed to the next point they should visit. Example. After an hour of getting accommodated with Subnautica's gameplay, I started to wonder what should I do. So I checked my PDA. There, in its databank, I found a category called Survival Package, where I found a survival checklist. For the first 10, maybe even 15 hours, it was my main guide as to what I should do. Especially since at one point it mentions finding other survivors. When I wanted to tackle that challenge, the radio broadcasts pointed me towards another life pod, which just enhanced my feeling of doing the right thing. It's such an effective narrative choice which lets developers strengthen the immersion of the game's world. And I have a feeling that in the second part of Subnautica's story, players might actually get a little bit lost, but if they will just keep building new means of travel and just continue their exploration, then they will find the next objective to follow, especially since the game puts such a heavy emphasis on exploration. Last note about the story. Its tone. Subnautica offers this overwhelming atmosphere of being alone, stranded. While the world is beautiful, it can sometimes be very scary. Oh yeah, Subnautica has its own horror elements. In order to combat those feelings, the voice messages and the remarks given to you by the PDA are kept in a more light-hearted, humorous way. They can give you a chuckle from time to time, and I really liked them. My opinion about the whole story after I completed the game is positive. While players need to work to uncover it, the plot gels all the threads available in various areas really well. But it pales in comparison to other game aspects, which are exploration and immersion. Those two things are the main stars of Subnautica. Let's talk about gameplay now. At the end of the video, I will give you my reasons as to why I think I didn't enjoy the game as much as I should. Having said that, I must admit, Subnautica is a magical experience thanks to its exploration and how uncovering the game's world is structured. Open waters of planet 4546b are very immersive. The game offers 4 difficulty settings: Survival, Freedom, Hardcore and Creative mode. Survival is the most standard mode, I would say. Freedom mode excludes thirst and hunger meters from your game. Hardcore adds permadeath and Creative gets rid of all constraints, even materials required for building. I played on survival mode, so I had to deal with 4 meters: HP, oxygen, food and thirst. The only meter that is not so self-explanatory as you would think is oxygen. It is our first constraint to exploration actually. Because you run out of air really fast underwater, you won't be able to venture deep. Of course, with time, player will unlock methods to obtain more oxygen, but make no mistake, this is a resource that is directly tied to exploration and progression. Our lifepod will become our first base of operations. Players can build upgrades there. They can also build new devices to use, such as flashlight or repairing tool. Scanner will be essential in acquiring new blueprints as well as some information. Lifepod has a small stash, so you cannot gather as much materials as you probably want. Of course, you can build some small containers and even some mobile chests, but let's admit, the start of our adventure is very restrictive in terms of gathering space. That was my first grab with it. In any kind of games that let you hoard your findings, I always go for increasing the stash capacity so I can gather as much things as I want. Feeling restricted forced me to make choices, what I will need and what not. Again, this is here by design. Lifepod is supposed to be restrictive. With time, players are going to start venturing further away. The next obvious step is building a base. There are no restrictions here. Players can build multiple bases and they can freely choose a place where they want to build. This element of gameplay took me hours. I loved building my base, planning how to add new corridor tubes and where what type of rooms will be placed. It lets you free your creative side. Finally, I was able to make some storage rooms that I filled to the brim with stashes and containers, so I can finally gather as much resources as I want. At this moment, I was fully engaged. Building a base requires some planning. You need enough energy for the machinery to work there. You of course need resources to build everything. Some of those resources can be quite scarce in the first hours of the playthrough. Players need to remember about hull integrity of their bases. If you overcommit to building too many corridors and rooms without enough stability parts and wall reinforcements, your base will start to flood. I have flooded my base one time. I of course panicked. It took me a decent amount of time to repair everything after that, so just be cautious. Every game mechanic in Subnautica offers a decent amount of depth. I just touched on base building. Let's dive in. There will be more elements to unlock in later parts of the game. New base fragments, container types, even a friggin' closed pool when you can breed alien fish. When it comes to resources, there are tons of it. And I don't mean just quantity of a few material types. There are so many different types of resources. It can give you a headache. Some of them are used to craft new materials that will be later used to create another assets. It might be a lot to take in, but thanks to our PDA, resource play is manageable. Another thing, the vehicles. Players can build different types of machines used to travel long distances, from a basic Seamoth to your own personal submarine. Those vehicles can help you with reaching deeper parts of the map and can also be upgraded, which will further increase their uses. You see, Subnautica introduces this depth meter. As you probably know, in real life, the deeper you go in the ocean, the more pressure your lungs and pretty much the whole body has to withstand. The game uses a system where being under specified depth causes problems. If a player dives under 100 meters deep, they will use twice the amount of oxygen to swim there. A Seamoth, the first obtainable vehicle, can go to 200 meters deep water. At lower altitudes, pressure will start to crush it. In order to enhance diving capabilities of Seamoth, players need to build in a depth module. Now this is the right time to finally talk about the genius of Subnautica's exploration design. The studio, Unknown Worlds Entertainment, did an excellent work in this department. Exploration and progression in this game are seamless. No fanfares or big explosive animations that you unlock a new level or a new zone. No invisible walls that won't let you get to the areas that will be available to visit later. The world of Subnautica is fully open right from the start. It's restricted in more natural ways. Area around Aurora shipwreck is radiated. You won't be able to get there until you get the radiation suit. Oxygen levels specify how long you can last underwater, and thanks to that, how far can you go. Vehicles and their upgrades unlock deeper areas to explore. Everything is gradual and natural. Some life pods or parts of wreckage might be not accessible until you research and build either a laser cutter or propulsion cannon. It all makes sense and adds into immersion. This way of progression also helps devs to avoid player boredom. I was at the point when I built a base and I got everything that I could build. At that time, I decided to get deeper to find another story objective. All of a sudden, I discovered a completely new biome with completely new fauna and flora, as well as new types of resources. New materials unlock new additions into your base or vehicles, and all of a sudden you are invested again in upgrading everything you unlocked, exploring this new part of the world. Then, after you settle with what you found, the game will surprise you again with some new discovery. It's fantastic. The way it's designed prevents you from discovering everything at the start and makes it more into a gradual process. The same process ensures player engagement because of new stuff they find. And all of that is achieved with no obvious level gating and other artificial player restrictions. Another great advantage of Subnautica's design is how immersive the world of Planet 4546b is. There is no procedural generation, everything is handmade. The world might not be the biggest one available in gaming, but it doesn't need to be. In my opinion, its size is just perfect. There's no minimap, so you have to navigate based on your familiarity with the surroundings. In order to make this easier, I highly recommend using beacons. They can be placed wherever player wishes and they can be named. This way, interesting locations can be marked. Everything that happens in Subnautica is designed to be immersive and not gamey. It's such a refreshing change after all those artificial level gating and following markers on minimap with zero thought. Even the small animations when you enter the base through the hatch or when you climb a ladder add to that immersion. One of the biggest factors of Subnautica's enthralling atmosphere is how scary it can be. When you dive in too deep and everything starts to get really dark, or when you swim too far away from safe shallow waters and then hear this sound. You know things got serious. One of the biggest predators of 45-46b fauna can be scary to the same extent as xenomorph from Alien Isolation. I mentioned thalassophobia at the start of this review. I don't know if I have a problem with the big and deep bodies of water. I definitely got acrophobia though, which is fear of heights. I have to say that each time when I got into open waters of Subnautica where I could not see the bottom of the ocean, I felt uncomfortable. Then, when I heard some ghastly, unnerving noises, the dread started to creep in. The environmental sounds in this game are perfect. The noises of the bigger creatures that surround the player are done at the highest level. I'm sure that Subnautica would not be as immersive as it is now if not for the sound work. Voice actors also did a great job. They sell the story really well and also leave the mood from time to time.
You're dumping me. I'm changing the terms of our relationship. How is it still a relationship?
Music in the game reminded me a little bit of Mass Effect's soundtrack. We have those synth-based themes mixed with some trance maybe and some techno for more intense parts of the story. I can't say that I find this mix memorable, although I know there are people that love Subnautica's OST. What's important in here for me is the fact that the music never disturbs the gameplay. It's just not invasive and helps set the tone and atmosphere of the areas player visits. In that regard, it fits really well. Graphic style chosen by the developers could be described as a little bit cartoony and light-hearted. What's important, it does not take away from the dread the game offers. The colorful reefs, beautiful and lush kelp forest, playful fish are used as a great juxtaposition to dark depths of the ocean or murky, contaminated waters near Aurora's wreckage. By the way, that's the scariest place to visit. Everything fits so perfectly within the game's world. Different biomes are distinct from each other. That's important because they contain different resources. Deep parts of the map host these glowing fluorescent life forms that differ a lot from what you can find in the shallows. The rarest materials can be found there. The graphic does not try to be photorealistic. Players can spot repeating textures, some of them are really low quality, but it does not matter, because as a whole, the art direction of this game is designed to be immersive and it accomplishes its task. During my time with Subnautica, I haven't got a single crash. There are some small bugs from time to time, fish being stuck in places, mainly walls. There were two reoccurring bugs that I noticed. First, game tends to bug out and don't show you storage panel when you approach some stashes or containers. I believe it mainly happens if your character stays a little bit further away from the object. Sometimes the screen bugs out when entering vehicles, making our character to look slightly to the right or left of the cockpit, so we cannot fully see what's happening in the center. Leaving a vehicle and entering again solves the problem. The same goes for the storage panel. Subnautica supports also VR play. I can only imagine how much more immersive experience it is in there. Okay, Steam reviews. This is a part where I will look at the most recent reviews on Steam. I am going to briefly analyze what parts of Subnautica got the most praise and which were more divisive. A disclaimer, I am not considering my opinion to be superior. I just want to see other people's points of view and maybe confront them with my review. The game currently sits at a score of 96% of positive reviews out of more than 150,000 user reviews. Let's see the positives. I can list here Subnautica's main strengths acknowledged through various reviews. Those are atmosphere, sound design, exploration, and of course how terrifying the game can be. It's crazy that it's the main aspect that most reviews talk about. Crafting and survival meters can be a little bit divisive. Many people claim that you might need some time to get used to the game's mechanics. I am not sure about it, since for me it felt pretty straightforward. The interesting thing I noticed in many reviews, doesn't matter whether they were negative or positive, is the fact that a lot of people talk about game being buggy. I heard about vehicles getting stuck inside terrain, people having to reload their save because something bugged out. Nothing like that happened to me though. But bear in mind that my time with Subnautica was rather short. 38 hours is not a lot of time spent for this game. There are many players that dedicated hundreds of hours to Subnautica. That's dedication. As for negative opinions, I have to say that it's hard to find decent reviews that would have at least 5 hours clocked in game and offer a coherent argument. Outside of bug reports, I found those 3 reviews. The main complaints can be summed up like this. Hunger and thirst meter are very tiresome to constantly attend to. I do not agree with this criticism, they just sometimes need to be filled up, and there is a mode without those meters. Another negative opinion voices a displeasure of being lost after completing all tasks given through radio. This is something I can agree with. I mean, we live in times when games pretty much handhold the players to complete objectives. Subnautica gives players some hints where they should go, but then lets them explore on their own in order to progress. Finally, some people voice their frustration about how tedious farming resources is, how we, as players, cannot know which materials will be needed in the future, so we hoard everything we can. The criticism we can see can be answered with the game's genre, survival game. Outside of bugs, every point made here showcases a staple in the genre. Thirst and hunger meters are pretty standard in this type of games. Same goes for loot hoarding and some tedium with acquiring materials. The decision to let players explore freely without much handholding is a conscious design choice, and I think it should be respected.
Containment breach repaired. Further breaches detected.
The game has only 17 achievements. If you go for story completion, you will get most of them since they are tied to progression. There are some achievements awarded for milestones that can be missed but probably won't be. Those are building a base, Seamoth, Cyclops and Prawn Suit. There's also special achievement for hatching a cuttlefish. In order to complete it, you will need an alien containment system in your base. Then you need to find a cuttlefish egg, place it in containment. After a couple of in-game days, a fish will hatch. You just need to take it and release outside of your base. Cuttlefish eggs can be found in deepest parts of Subnautica's map or in caverns inside Mushroom Forest. Also a tip to unlock the Gassy Base achievements. For me, they unlocked only after I found all PDAs in the respective base areas. And don't forget that if you play in creative mode, achievements are locked. Let's address the elephant in the room. I started the review by saying that I didn't enjoy the game as much as I think I should. That's true. The most fitting comparison in here would be a couple breaking up with the words, "It's not you, it's me." And I mean it here. I can recognize how great of a game it is, and it's not like I didn't enjoy the game at all. The sense of dread and all the emotions felt fantastic. The world immersed me to the fullest. There were just a lot of moments where I rushed the game because I already did what I wanted to do, and then there was no reason to keep doing the same thing. Examples of elements I didn't like. As I said before, I don't like being forced to have a small stash, especially in a game where I should gather materials. It really felt like I was handcuffed in the first hours of my playthrough. The lack of any kind of map made me feel disoriented. After spending some time with the game, I got a good grasp at what's where, and after planting some beacons, I was very aware of the map. I know this is a conscious decision made by the devs to do it this way, and from the design perspective, I think it's a right call. I personally just didn't like the feeling of disorientation. Building a base, regular tours to acquire materials were fine and gave me some things to do, but after building a base and completing all structures I wanted there to be, I just rushed for an objective because I didn't feel like I should acquire more materials. In MMOs, I do not have this problem because the more wealth I acquire, the more leverage I will have while trading with other people. I think those are the main problems I had with Subnautica during my playtime. I will repeat again, it's not the game's fault, it's me. I can confidently say that Subnautica is the best game I mildly enjoyed. The thing here is that I am not a survival game enthusiast. That's all. Having said that, I cannot overlook how well this game is made. Subnautica offers a masterclass in world building. The environment of the game is madly immersive. Players are going to feel stranded, hopeless, scared. Emotions that will be overthrown by great milestone achievements like finally building a base or creating their first underwater ship. Exploration design is among the best of the games I played. It's natural and fitting within the game's world. Sounds of the sea and its creatures are excellent. Graphical design, while a little bit cartoony, fits well and tells a story of its own. The actual plot is also good. It provides player with guidance, but does not hold his hand aggressively. There is a lot of player agency in Subnautica. Overall, it's a great product and everyone should give it a try. I recommend this game. Hey, I want to thank you all for watching this video. If you liked it, press the thumbs up, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment. If you didn't like it, then press thumbs down and definitely leave a comment. I'm curious of your opinion. My question to you after this video is: have you ever got a game that you knew was good, but for some reason you didn't like it? So that's all from me. Bye.